From the last playoffs in summer where he started off.
We cast Sintolol a little bit earlier on with this aggressive lineup. Now does get to play Tempo Mage as he's had his Token Druid banned out. So Zoo, Tempo Mage, Odd Rogue, three of the most aggressive decks in the meta right now. And Insane isn't exactly taking it slow either. His Odd Paladin is going to be banned out. And then the Zoo Warlock, Odd Rogue, and Token Druid. And just touch on Insane as well. Both these players are 3-0.
Yeah.
Insane is 3-0 in every single match he's played so far. It's Insane versus Sintolol. This is to go 4-0 in Swiss so far. It's going to be that Mage versus the Rogue, and this is one of the nice matchups for Mage, at least in my opinion.
It's okay, yeah. I think again the buffs that Aggro Mage got with the new expansion, some of the new cards that they got, really not only helped them out to push through control decks a lot more, but it also increased their standing in like the aggro circle of life, right? Like before Tempo Mage was the aggro deck that lost to every other aggro deck, and I think that is still true to an extent, but they certainly have more tools to pull out wins in those matchups, this one included.
Job's done. Yeah, I'd have to agree on that one. And the Celestial Emissary we didn't talk too much about,
yeah,
but that one, it provides a Battlecry +2 spell damage on your next spell this turn, and that one extra boost as well just allows you to push so much extra damage that these burn plants, even through certain levels of armor, is still doable because you're just gaining more and more damage. At the moment though, just a ping from Sinto, kick it off, just taking his Divine Shield off this Argent Squire here, and Insane, not going to be able to do much, just hero power, which definitely isn't a bad turn, but suddenly the Mana Worm opens up some options here.
Yeah, the Mana Worm creates a nice counterpunch for Sinto on a follow-up turn. Alongside Kirin Tormage now gives him a very explosive turn later on. But that's, again, one of the big things that's changed about this Mage deck. It used to be that you're playing against Odd Rogue and Odd Rogue played a 1-drop and you didn't. That pretty much ended the game because they snowballed from there, and your comeback mechanism was limited to like high rolling the heck out of a Cinderstorm. Like it hits perfectly. That's what you'd need to do, or something crazy off Glyph. But now, when you can slap spell damage on top of that Cinderstorm as well, and you have Shooting Star, and you have missiles, and you can really like pop off with all of those in one turn, you can actually afford to almost play like some real old school Tempo Mage matchups where you would wait, Flame Waker, Sorcerer's Apprentice, go nuts and kill everything.
Yeah, what's really funny about Aggro Mage right now is I couldn't even tell you what cards it's lost. You know, no, I mean, I guess Life Drinker that people are playing isn't played anymore, but when a deck it feels like it's only gained and not really lost out on anything when you're building it, that's when you know it's got significantly more powerful, right? Than it was at least previously.
They generally cut a secret as well. I don't know if that's the case from Sintolol. Yeah, he's playing 1 counter spell and 2 explosive runes, which again is why I feel like Secret Mage, which was the only other acceptable name for this deck prior to everyone who should be calling it Aggro Mage, is now also unacceptable because there actually just aren't that many secrets in the deck anymore.
But it does have secrets.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, this is a good start now for Sinto, just putting 2 minions that at worst contest the board, since this can be cleanly traded off by Insane, but also having that spell activated as well. And this, against Rogue, isn't so bad. There's the old thing we talked about quite a lot, where you don't really want to play counterspell when your opponent just blatantly has the coin in hand. But Rogue makes use of the coin probably more than almost any other class right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at this board state and look at how hard Coin Vilespine Slayer just punishes you right now. Like, that's just a huge board swing. It's even with all the new tools I was just talking about, it'd be a board swing that'd be hard to recover from. So, yeah, it's just a perfectly reasonable counterspell to block a coin here.
Yeah, and going back to a conversation at the start of this game, let's just cast your eyes over Celestial Emissary and Shooting Star, which is available for Sinto.
Yep.
Goodbye board, as that is a 3 damage to 3 minions for 3 mana. That's a whole lot of 3s.
Seems to line up pretty well against Odd Rogue minions to me.
You could still Glyph, you could still ping as well. You know, you could still Frostbolt Face if you really wanted to log at that dagger for some reason. You know, there's so many options. Now this is a crossroads, I would say, for Sinto. There's Meteor, which for 4 mana you can just say, okay, play something. It's dead. Pretty easy. Arcane Missiles is just nice to whip in some of these turns, but maybe not quite as good at this point in the game. But also, you could take the approach of Pyroblast and say, well, I'm in a good position with the Shooting Star. Pyroblast will come in 3 turns.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just get him. But he did go for the Meteor, which I think was just the all-rounder safe pick.
Yeah, 22 damage in hand, plus 2 pings into the 8-mana Pyroblast. That's 24 that you've already got ranked up. And then you see Insane almost certainly daggering a 2-1 on that turn. So you're suddenly only a couple of points of damage away on the Pyroblast plan. I think as you broke down, I think all 3 of those picks actually had a lot of validity that turn.
Way better than Glacial Mysteries.
Oh, yeah.
The question on everyone's mind is Insane. Gotta play around Meteor.
I mean, Annoyatrons play around Meteor pretty well.
That's true. But if you put the Henge Clan in the middle, for example, like, I'm just saying.
Why would you do that? It gives you such an unnatural position to put it in the first place. There we go. So there's the swing
cool
potential coming back the other way that Sintolol really needs, and you see him just firing it off immediately. Arcane Missiles just trying to get some work done.
And look at the difference now. Obviously, you have to play the Anomaly,
Yeah.
but 1 mana deal 5.
Yeah.
It's so good. This Frostbolt deals 5. It's just crazy. Job done.
Ping's a 1-1 though. I do wonder. That Anomaly draw. If he had the Pyroblast in hand, he could have been looking at just Anomaly Pyroblast face, as you mentioned. And then fire off the Arcane Missiles still, just looking to try and get 1 or 2 of them to connect with face.
It's not so unreasonable considering so much of the deck is just as aggressive as possible.
Right.
You can build it. It can almost all be aimed to face, one way or the other. And now, are these Annoyatrons just a little bit too big? And is this the reverse punch? I'd say for Insane to just be able to start fighting back. Because this is suddenly stacking up to be too much damage to handle right now.
I'm going to go with a pretty solid yes as the answer to your question.
And the audience said, yes, okay.
If it's up there, I'll give you the money myself.
There's moments where I'd love to just be able to just pause the game, take a player to one side and just be like, right, so what are you thinking at this point? Because Sinto's almost playing control mage.
Yeah, he's thinking
out.
Alneth, right? Like that's his plan from here. He's trying to get a Stargazer Luna or an Alneth turn where he just gets enough resources where these kind of miserable turns that he's taking right now just pay off in his favor in the long run.
Now the coin can be used, not this turn particularly, but to sort of protect the cold blood and make sure it goes off as well. So there is now some extra value in that coin as opposed to just being procced by counter spell.
So Arcanologist does draw 1 remaining explosive runes, I believe.
Should be, yeah. He's only a counter spell so far.
Yeah. Do you play the Arcanologist this turn? You can just go Fireball ping explosive runes. Just seems more efficient.
At what point does Sinto not have enough damage left in his deck to win this game?
It's a good question.
Because suddenly, Fireballs, Frostbolts, you know, these straight-to-face damage cards are going away very quickly the more he's playing this control game. And Rogue Dagger beats Mage Hero Power, as far as I'm aware.
You don't need much though. Like a little bit of damage here from a couple of explosive runes that he's guaranteed to get over the next couple of turns, and then, you know, a couple of your remaining spells alongside your second Cosmic Anomaly is the name that I'm looking for. And then suddenly you're back in business. You do still have a Primordial Glyph remaining, and you have a lot of missile effects still remaining as well. Both Cinderstorms and a second Arcane Missiles, I think.
Yeah. I do worry that, obviously, because we can see, but without having Alneth in your hand, playing your whole game around the assumption that you'll draw Alneth soon enough.
Well, what was the backup plan from that point? Unless you're rewinding to the
I'm going backwards. He picked Mewtwo instead of Pyroblast when he had a good set of cards to set up for that turn 8 push.
Right. I think, you know, the minions that he then faced were immediately Giggling Inventor into Giggling Inventor, which made Meteor look very stupid, though, right?
That's correct, yeah.
If more of the mid-range 5-drops came down from that position, Meteor would have looked a lot more effective. Obviously, we stare and kind of do results-oriented thinking and have caster vision and all that stuff, where we say, well, yeah, you know, that Meteor looked dumb because you just faced a bunch of one.
It looks like Rastafish versus Vadu is going on your left, and then Hattel versus RDU going on there, and RDU looking to continue a pretty successful run so far, as all these players are having it 3-0.
Yeah, Vardu, of course, member of Team Winland. Finland, I think, one of the most underappreciated countries in Hearthstone in terms of, if you look at their performances as a collective in tour stops this year, you know, they consistently come with a lineup that they've built together that proves to be the most successful lineup in the tournament. We saw it in HCT Italy, we saw it in DreamHack as well, where Zump was the eventual winner. They just have like a never-ending list of players with that lineup who are going 6-3 or similar.
Finland guys afterwards, and they were all super happy and super pumped just to know that the lineup, the preparation was worth it, and it paid off for one of the guys. So it was awesome for those guys. But let's focus back onto this game as Sintolol. You may need to open your eyes. There you go. Good job.
Looking at the cards in your hand does tend to help you win a game of Hearthstone.
Okay, so it's going to be the Aggro Mage yet again versus the Token Druid of Insane. And you've got, I would say, a pretty good opening here because Token Druid, although we're pegging it as a semi-aggressive deck,
it's very slow.
It doesn't do much for the first 4 to 5 turns, to be completely honest. Its power plays come late game when it can stack those tokens upon tokens with the Soul of the Forest, for example, and really make those big pushes with double Savage Roar, or Savage Roar Branching Pass, or double Savage Roar Branching Pass, which is just even more damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, having these minion pressure early for Sinto is looking to be very good for him right now.
A lot of the time, like how you have to operate against an aggro deck with Token Druid is to go like Whispering Woods on turn 4 and just hope like 2 or 3 of those stick compared to what your opponent's developed, and then try and leverage that with your buffs and Soul of the Forest and try and keep on the board for the whole game. That's very hard to do against Aggro Mage in particular, because not only can they have fast starts with minions, they also just have all those missile effects that can quite easily take care of that turn 4 Whispering Woods.
Yeah, the key point will be just surviving till the mid to late game and not being a disaster where you end up making suboptimal turns to just not die to maybe if they have their second fireball.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I think just comes down to Malfurion. Malfurion's such a great card versus Aggro Mage specifically, because you just -3 off one of their spells every single turn with that armor gain. It's absolutely huge. Plus the the +5 armor in the beginning of playing it anyway.
On the Spellstone, and now we'll see where Insane is feeling in terms of this game of chicken that Sintolol initiated. He went face with a 2-3 against this 3-2, and Insane says, yes sir, you may have your free damage.
Okay, you can have this one.
It's interesting to think about though, right? Because if Insane goes face there with a 3-2, a lot of the time Sintolol plays a 4-3 this turn. So he's then incentivized himself to trade the 2-3 into the 3-2. I think that's a game of chicken you can actually potentially win.
Yeah, there's also a lot of times where they just arcane missiles or Sorcerer's Apprentice, Shooting Star, like
that's fair.
It could still ping, or ping missiles. There's a lot of ways where that minion just dies and then you still get pressured. Here's missiles into the 1-1.
3 gets all 3 to hit minions, not go face. That's a big win for Sinto. Cutting Insane down to 1 minion on the board is a huge win for him.
And with the counterspell backup, it means that he doesn't particularly have to consider trading the 1-1, because I would consider it very quickly as to whether you put the 4-3 into the 1-1 to stop any buffs being a bit awkward. But counterspell plus runes now. Yep, Insane's face kind of just sums this turn up, doesn't it? It's all of them. Okay, never mind, carry on.
Yeah. He knows that's getting counterspelled. He just needs to play a spell here so that he has freedom for Spreading Plague on the following turns.
Very important as well, because Insane knows that is the single counterspell. So Spreading Plague is 100% playable unless Glyph comes out this turn into a secret, and then everything's up in the air.
Oh. Yep. Additional copies of Counterspell are huge. No, but they're still so relevant, right? Because the Spreading Plague can happen, but you play it into their 10-mana turn like all day. Just as soon as they have that first turn where they can cast UI, you just jam that Counterspell, and Insane will just slowly cry to himself.
Yeah, and even with the Insane's playing 2 Power of the Wilds, but he's used 1. He's used 1 Spellstone, so outside of maybe a Wild Growth, there's no real throwaway spells. Is there in Druid?
Yeah.
And even if you Wild Growth, where you've still kind of counterspelled the UI this turn because they ain't playing anymore.
So again, this is the situation that I talked about in the intro, where suddenly Shooting Star just makes a mockery of this whole situation. It's not as impactful here as it can be in other spots because there aren't that many Spreading Plague tokens. It's when there's 3 or 4 of them that come down that Shooting Star really ends up being kind of crazy. But Cinderstorm should be able to do the job quite nicely here for Sintolol if he wants to go that route.
Yeah, do you think like double trade with get the Mana Worm down, then counterspell Cinderstorm?
you want to counterspell now?
I'm just wondering if
I guess it's good enough.
If they do a throwaway turn, then what else are they doing with 5 mana-ish? Say the Power of the Wild or Wild Growth, where they've not ramped up to UI anyway, and well, they're having a 5 mana turn when they're nearly dead. It has to be literally throwaway spell into swipe.
Yes,
for this
exactly. No, I like it for exactly that reason. Like, it blocks swipe, it blocks Second Plague, it blocks any armor gain potential with branching paths, unless, as you said, there's like pretty much exactly Wild Growth into one of those spells coming out here.
And also there's still the awkwardness of, well, if there are a few minions that you could play, like Violet Teacher, well, they just die. You know?
And Insane here gets 1 out of range with the armor up, so he's dead to any spell in the spell deck.
It's likely.
It does.
Considering that Sintolol's played 2 Kirin Tor, he's played 2 Arcanologists and 1 Mana Worm. That is most of the minions you even play. So Sintolol there taking a quick win. So punching
is banned, which leaves him with his Zoo and the Token Druid that we've already seen, whereas Sinto now has to go to his Odd Rogue and his Zoo.
Who wins, Sol?
Who wins? Put it on the line right
decide.
now. Well, I mean, the Token Druid there from Insane is still a little bit slow in a lot of these matchups. You know, Odd Rogue can run it over very quickly. Zoo can do the same thing. So I'd be a little bit worried for Insane trying to get that matchup over the line in terms of like which of the 4 decks on either side is going to struggle the most.
Okay, well, we're going to go swiftly onto game number 3. No time for messing around here. Sinto on the Rogue and Insane going over to the Zulak. Oh, I see why you're a fan of Sinto.
Why?
He's playing Doom Guards.
He's not playing Doom Guards in his Warlock.
I just glanced over and was like,
yeah.
I see Sotol's vote of confidence hitting.
Right. I changed my mind on that quite recently, honestly, because I always felt like, you know, people were playing Doom Guards last meta in a Zoo deck that had, you know, sometimes Lich Kings and Blood Reaver Gul'dan and all kinds of cards above 5 on the curve, and they were still playing Doom Guards, and that felt very strange to me. And historically, we've seen Doom Guards also being played in the same deck as Dr. Boom, for example, which seemed very weird because of just the way naturally like discard works with having more expensive cards than the card you're using to discard. But then the more I played this Zoo deck, the more I realized that there's so many cards that you don't just play on curve anymore. Right, because of all the left-hand hand buffing stuff, and then the fact that you're waiting for Soul Infusion to kind of hit the right target at the right time. Getting a Doom Guard entering into a hand like that is just a very miserable feeling.
It is. What would you say if I asked you about Blood Reaver Gul'dan? So.
In Zoo? In Zoo specifically? Yes. Do you want me to get on my soapbox? Like,
kind of. It's funny because I know why I do it with it. But anyway, let's focus on the cards that are actually in the decks, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, the main difference is that Leroy for Sintolol and 1 Doom Guard for Insane. Those are the big stick-out points here. You can see the Leroy already in Sintolol's hand.
Yeah, and this is a matchup that I actually cast a show match for on Fino's stream. If you aren't familiar with what Fino does, he kind of plays long sets between groups of top players piloting specific decks. So, you know, it's a different kind of data collection than we see from like HS Replay, which aggregates all games being played. It's a smaller sample between more refined play. Right, and you know, see what we get out of that. One of the things that we learned very, very quickly is that going second is really miserable for both sides. So immediately, Sintolol being on coin as the Odd Rogue is a problem for him. We also found out, surprisingly, based on the sample that we had, that Keleseth really didn't have much of an impact on the matchup at all. In fact, like we interviewed Green Sheep afterwards, who was playing Zoo, and he somewhat jokingly, but kept insisting he was serious, said that if he played the show match again, he would just mulligan away Keleseth. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess the idea is that it's too slow of a turn.
You take too much of a tempo loss against the dagger by playing a 2-mana 2/2.
Compared to this.
Exactly.
Look at this. This is way better.
That's what ended up winning the matchups for Zoo, was big Soul Infusion plays. So that's what Green Sheep was trying to mulligan for. Not Keleseth curves, but just enormous explosive turns that really got himself into the territory of the big Soul Infusion.
Yeah, look how miserable this turn is. You just tanked the 3-5 with the dagger, put it in within range of the Hench Clan.
Yeah.
But the Hench Clan's already dead. I don't know if it knows it yet, but it's already gone.
Yeah, Sinto does have Coin Valspine available to him, and Valspine is one of the best cards in the matchup for sure. You don't really have to worry about Valspining big targets. You can just Valspine a thing, and the tempo swing is just enormous.
Very much the Soulfire of the Rogue, right?
Yes,
in terms of you just
much.
Soulfire something on turn 2 to gain the board if you need to.
Right.
I wonder how much you whale up Solarium that turn to maybe even fish for something a little bit nicer.
I think because one of your cards was Kobold Librarian, then it's a lot more tempting just to go for that first. I think if they were deader 1-drops, then you'd definitely consider it. To look for, actually, exactly, Fungal Enchanter is really what you were looking for as a power play in this position.
And welcome to the issues with Odd Rogue.
Yes.
Suddenly, even Coin Valspine doesn't look too hot right now. Clears off 2 of the bigger threats. 3-1 and one of the 3-3s can go. But you end up with a 3-4 versus a 3-3 and a 2-1, and also you don't have a dagger re-equipped.
Yeah, you also achieve a very similar thing with this play, which is just Flame Elemental SI. You just get to take 2 minions off the board. You don't get quite as many stats in play, but you keep your swingiest card with the Valspine Slayer in hand, which is a very big deal.
One of the ways this could go move around a little bit in Sintolol's favor is if the Dreadlord comes down this turn.
Yeah.
A 3-3 can trade straight up, and then there's a 1-2 versus a 3-3. But then you Valspine and play. You can even coin out 5-fly if you want, but you can Valspine the Dreadlord, and then have a 3-4 and a 1-2 versus just a 3-3, which is actually as big a swing as you're really going to get at this point.
Which is why it's quite important to hold your coin if you're going second as the Odd Rogue. I did talk about how it's a disadvantage to do so, but it seems like the most effective turn to use it is with a Valspine play. And it's another reason why you saw Sinto just go with the slightly less powerful play that achieved basically the same thing. Because if he used Coin Valspine on the previous turn, even if he had a second Valspine in hand, there's no world where he can then Valspine a Despicable Drone.
Oh, it's insane. Just float 2 mana and not play counter. It's pointless.
It just doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
But that was a very good Solarium there. And you can tell Insane realizes the discussion we just had on the Dreadlord. If you just play Dreadlord, he knows coin's still available and knows that is a weak spot if it happens there.
Okay. Now Sintolol does have a bit of swing potential though.
Folks, who goes there?
He has 2 comboable Valspine Slayers now just off the back of that one Firefly.
Is that a word? Combo-able?
Yeah.
Comboable?
Yeah.
Combobable?
Not entirely sure you'll find it in the dictionary, but it's a logical word, let's put it that way.
Yes.
In the light's name.
Defining what a word is quite loose, isn't it?
Right.
If I say something, you know what I mean. Does it become a word? Kind of. And now, the unfairness to this Dreadlord. All your minions have -1 health. Just for the fun of it.
So now here you see the swings, and this is where Insane can actually start to lose a grip. Even though it looks like he's so close, a single Giggling Inventor can just lock him out of this game from this position if he doesn't get the board back right now.
And talk to me about Myra's. Myra's Unstable Element is a legendary spell that draws your whole deck.
Yes.
It doesn't burn you or anything, it's just you draw 10 cards and the rest of your deck disappears.
Yes.
What does it do? Why for Rogue in Odd? Like, why is it here and how is it played?
It's refill, basically. It's a deck that plays almost, it plays no card draw, and a lot of the time you're just going to run out of resources, both against control decks that can just play removal against your minions, and also against the most aggressive decks who will just trade you resource for resource, right? You can imagine if Zoo can just keep life tapping and you have no way to refill, you're going to eventually find yourself in trouble. Myra's Unstable Element is a card that can really just redress that balance and allow you to explode in one turn. Just pick up as many cards as you possibly can and just use that to end the game.
Might be very important because although Sintolol's grappling with this game and slowly getting in control, one, as you mentioned, Insane has life tap, and 2, it almost just needs Giggling Inventor to just not take more face damage because he's on 7 right now.
Yeah. Blood Knight is going to be devastating from this position. Insane's thinking about it very, very hard. We can see he's going to be rewarded enormously for playing it. He's just thinking about, of course, the implications of Giggling Inventor coming down against this.
Off the top.
He needs it. Oh!
Raven flexes his prediction powers as always.
Yep. And now there are only 2 attacks in play against a Giggling Inventor with a Blood Knight on the board. Sintolol just wants a 3-3 in play. He's going to play this first and then maintain his Divine Shields behind this.
I think it has more value over time than redaggering.
Yeah.
Because it can trade into either the Imp or something else that's played next turn anyway. It's a decent sized body versus Zoo, even with the Calisat buff.
Yeah, it makes sense. Sinto is also got to consider the implications of second Despicable Dreadlord as well that we see in hand. There aren't many tools that Insane has in his entire deck that get him out of this position when he's this far pinned behind a Giggling Inventor with so few attacks on board. The one that's very, very scary is the second Despicable Dreadlord.
I also think as well, with the Blood Knight play, you kind of might plan to empty your hand as much as possible because of Myra's, and you want to draw that second Giggling. He is playing 2, right? I'm not just going crazy presuming. Right, of course.
Ooh. He was actually, I believe, spending all that time counting lethal for himself. Is that what was going on? Because now with these 2 attacks going in, he has 12, 14. Yeah, with Leroy on the following turn, picks him up at lethal damage. So he's saying to the opponent, if you don't have Despicable Dreadlord or Soulfire one of my minions, I'm just going to kill you with this Leroy next turn. It's a very aggressive stance to take.
That Dreadlord getting the work done right now.
Cold Blood off the top? Nope.
The issue now is, even with Myra's, you can't Myra's into another Giggling. It's 1 mana off.
Yeah.
Very brave play by Sinto.
Yeah, I wonder. He thought long and hard about that turn. He's put a lot more thought into it than I, of course, had time to do, but it felt with Myra's in hand that it was in his interest to just play Stalemate for another turn or 2, right? Like the extra Divine Shields on his minions.
And this is the weird point, right? I just called Sinto brave. And there are a lot of players out there, I'm sure, that were like, it's not brave, it's just the right play. That sort of overall attitude of
of course.
Being aggressive isn't necessarily always mean you being brave or taking a risk. But I felt he was so safe
I'm out of
that you didn't need to, roll the dice at that point.
I give up.
There we go. So drawing the deck wasn't enough, but what a game potentially. That was kind of hype at the end. I thought Sinto maybe just had Insane leads versus Sintolol 2-1. It's going to be the Druid left standing for Insane with the Token Druid, and Sintolol has his Odd Rogue and his Zoo to go against it. And you were saying Token Druid was the deck that was a little bit worrisome for you in Insane's lineup, or in this matchup at least.
Yeah, with the Violet Teacher version in particular, don't get me wrong, Token Druid, if it explodes, then the average aggro deck just can't really stand up to the amount of stats that it can output in one turn. But when you're playing the Violet Teacher version, just playing like a 4-mana 3/5 on turn 4, aggro will be able to chew that up quite effectively and just push on through. You are very much hinging on those Spreading Plague draws to just buy you the turns you need to be explosive. And most of these aggro decks have some kind of tool to engineer good positions against those Spreading Plague turns.
Yep. And Sintolol playing the 1 Life Drinker, 1 Despicable Dreadlord, 1 Blood Knight, fair enough. But the rest is pretty even amount. Just spread across all the duplicates there, just the usual list with the Solarium in there as well, just being able to open some options a little bit later on. For now, Insane's just going to take it slow because you kind of have to use this deck and just hero powering down.
Ooh, that's so clutch for Sinto. Had a very slow start, just doing very little for the first 3 turns, and playing just a 3-mana 3/3 on his 3rd turn is not the kind of pressure that he needs to be picking up.
Yeah, now the ability to just start chaining minions, Life Drinker next turn, Dreadlord the turn after, it, regardless of what he draws as well, so back to palm the pressure now. Hoping someone just to come down and pull that Violet Teacher out of the deck. And now it's back on Sinto to work out how he wants to deal with this.
Yep. And because his start has been so slow, he wasn't been able to curve through all those one-drops that he'd really like to have exploding onto the board right now. This Violet Teacher is doing amazing work against his start. And with the double Spellstone, you saw the second Spellstone came off the top for Insane, and he nodded to himself. He said, all right, well, now we have a plan. He coined out the Oaken Summons, and now he can leverage this Teacher with a double buffed double Spellstone.
So going to be really good, a nice cheap removal and clear off these minions that Sintolol has on the board. But Sintolol also has a plan. What does Violet Teacher do? Make 1/1s. What does Despicable Dreadlord do? Kill 1/1s. So he does have the plan just going into turn 5, pretty straightforward. But that Teacher isn't going anywhere. But it's kind of like similar to earlier, a weird game of chicken, isn't it? Because the 3/3 gets left up, so the full trade can happen.
Yeah.
But even if the Teacher was left versus the Dreadlord, who trades into what there? Because the Dreadlord will keep killing the 1/1s.
Right.
If the Teacher trades, it dies.
Right. And on 5 mana with double Spellstones used, there are not a lot of ways that a that a Druid kills a 4/5 without that Violet Teacher trading into it.
Multiple Giggling Inventors. Oh, you'll get there eventually.
Now, Insane just has to develop into a Dreadlord, which is about the saddest feeling that you can find yourself faced with in Hearthstone. When you just have to plop things onto a board.
All right, Gaskin,
Yeah, there you go.
I do. You know me, Sal. You know I like to think about plays that just aren't as good as the best one. But
Yes! Tell me more.
can you ever not play Giggling Inventor here?
I think many of the best plays this turn involve not playing Giggling Inventor.
Okay. You just said you felt you had to develop into a Dreadlord. But I think Branching Paths or just preemptively swiping it
Right.
might be okay.
Yeah.
Not well, I say okay. Okay is probably being a bit nice about it. It sucks for Insane. He wants to be playing Giggling Inventor and playing stuff onto the board. But as you said, the impact of just the Dreadlord, just even if Sintolol just passed, is a huge problem.
He is.
Go with
Go
it.
ahead and play it.
Okay.
This does leave him with 2 1/2s on the board at the end of the turn. So then with this hand that he has, Savage Roars and Swipes and Branching Paths, he's thinking he can use that as a swing turn to come back the other way, just to kind of drop, contest the board state using those 1/2s that will survive.
Yeah, I think he wants a turn where he can get something done, and he will kind of plan on winning the late game. He has UI in hand. He only needs a, Whispering Woods or something to bridge the gap between mid and late game for him. Nourish does get that Savage Roar off and work towards this Ultimate Infestation, so Nourish was actually a pretty important draw here.
Yeah, really, really close.
Still just a 5/5 on the board though, and Solarium is a great follow-up with Sintolol kind of splurging his hand onto the board. Insane is also running 2 Giggling Inventors, so this Blood Knight is something Sintolol's probably going to keep hold of right now. Ooh. 1 drop and a Fungal Mancer, please, sir.
Seems good, yeah.
And now, that Dreadlord was hard to kill.
Insane has a lot of stall, but not a lot else going on right now. He has Branching Paths for armor 4 times in total, and then an Ultimate Infestation on top of that, but there's still a 7/6 on the board as it stands right now.
6 being the important number.
6 being the important number indeed, because the Ultimate Infestation next turn is going to have to be thrown at a very subpar target as it stands.
Well, these 3 options from Sintolol are not really what he wants for this turn. Tapping into a Flame Imp is a little bit annoying. Can you ever just Leroy Flame Imp? Just put the 2/1 into one of the 1/1s and go.
And then you give them the 1/1 to deal with your 7/6 on the following turn.
But then you've got a 6/2 on the board too. I know it's not as powerful, but
that's fair.
with this hand, you just want to start pushing.
Possibilities.
So if you do Leroy Flame him, go full face with everything, that puts him down to... How big is the Leroy actually? It didn't get buffed by the Soul Infusion, right? So you put him down to 12, and then you have 9, 15, 18 on board. Ultimate Infestation takes off. Yes, you're not quite saying up lethal doing it that way, so I think just playing the other minions and holding back the Leroy is just slightly more efficient in the long run. It's not like, again, this is just another buff of Leroy over Doomguard, right? It's not like this is an interaction that you have to worry about. These 2 cards in your hand go together perfectly.
Yes.
It's the exact opposite of the Doomguard interaction.
And also as well, what I will say about the Blood Knight is its effectiveness is disappearing at at this moment in the game, because you were almost certainly expecting a UI this turn with the way that Insane is played, and that's what you have to think about. If a Giggling Inventor comes down, plus like, you know, another card, it's not quite as problematic as your opponent refilling his hand and gaining armor.
Right.
So this does mean that you can probably just throw the Blood Knight as a 3/3, as Sintolol has done, and try and make this push.
So this means Insane will go up to 23 with the Ultimate Infestation, and there's 22 damage as it stands here for Sinto.
Oh, did get a Tyrant as well, very nice for Insane. You hope
Yep.
for at least one.
And now with that second Giggling Inventor being drawn, that can be a real mess now for Sinto, because he needs to get both of these sources of face damage through to the face, and he can't do it this turn. Leroy and Fungalmancer are both going to have to connect with the face if he's going to get over the line here, most likely. He's going to struggle to do that. He might be now just potentially relying on a double Soulfire out, but even then there's a set of branching paths available for Insane.
That's the problem, right? You could do all this and then just Leroy Soulfire anyway.
Yeah.
But Giggling Inventor, branching paths, Spreading Plague pretty much makes it so that Sintolol never gets to attack face with a minion ever again.
Yep.
And then all you have to worry about is branching paths. Is Sintolol playing, it's only the one life drinker, right? Unless I'm making things up. Yeah, only the one life drinker, so it's literally just 2 Soulfires is what Insane would have to play around for the rest of the game.
Only one Blood Knight as well.
Yeah.
Which was played on the previous turn to try and set up some lethal outs for Sinto. But yeah, this combination of armor gain and one of the 2 big taunt walls. Insane's actually going to go swipe and just clear up the board. This makes a lot of sense as well, and just minimizing risk wherever possible.
Well, the game has become so straightforward now.
Yeah.
Insane just has to be like, can I survive, what, 14 damage? If
Yeah.
so, I can never lose.
It's true, it does allow Leroy to hit you in the face, which the other route just doesn't seem to ever. It's kind of interesting to me.
I guess if Leroy comes down, you can kill it off. And then you have Giggling Inventor, Spreading Plague.
Yeah.
So then you just -6 off your count and feel okay, because you're still safe if
Yeah,
you
sure.
take 6 here. This is where things get spicy.
Sinto, it is safe to say, is not pleased with the sequence of events that he has faced down in this final game, and in fact for most of this series, and that is an insurmountable wall.
Yeah, and I think this is where you know, the respect of the highest represented class is given. Any other class could not deal with that, right? You cannot gain armor, be defensive with taunts, and ramp